Hello, Raffi. Welcome to the Relationship Lab podcast.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Ash?
I'm good, thank you. Um, Raffi, before we start, do you have a favorite motivational quote which motivates you, inspires you, you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. Yeah. I like this idea that was said or written by the guy who was running the longest ever longitudinal study called the Grant Study. And they tried to figure out what makes successful life and what makes people happy. And after decades of study and crunching numbers and research, his conclusion was this: happiness is love, full stop. That was it. The
Mm.
one factor that made the difference for the guys in the study beyond anything else was the quality of their relationships. So that inspires me to do what I do, which is to help people get their relationships dialed in and fixed up and to have happy relationships so they can have happy lives.
Mm. That is very interesting take on love, to be honest, because as we are getting into the modern world, as you can see, generation before us used to spend most of their time in um, their day-to-day activities, but also connecting with each other because they didn't had to process gigabytes of data every day or hundreds of gigabytes of data every day, right? So
Yeah.
their brain wasn't actually occupied by this consistent flow of dopamine because of all these. I don't want to blame social network because we are the people who brought in into our life, right? Humans. But now the structure has been changed. We are processing all this data every day in our brain. We are more practical. We think more sensibly. We are rational. And among all these kiosks, love is very silent, sitting in the corner of our brain's room, looking at us and saying, "Do you have some time?" Isn't it?
Right. I mean,
So
it's not just saying, it's kind of like whispering it, you know, it's
yeah.
hard to hear.
Indeed, indeed. And then as you help your clients, your patients with their marriages and counseling, I always had this question in my brain, which was asked by quite a lot of listeners on the show about this modern world relationship called marriage. In your opinion, is marriage still relevant in today's society with shifting values and cohabitation becoming more common? The necessity of marriage is often questioned. What is your take on it?
So my take on it, I think, comes from this very quote, which is that the people who are happiest and most satisfied with their lives are the ones who have the best network of relationships, the deepest connections with people, and relationships take work. And to my mind, one of the most important parts of marriage is that there's two people who really invest and really try to deepen that one relationship. And it's been a very common thing throughout human history that there is some kind of institution of marriage or some kind of one-on-one relationship, because there's only so many relationships you can really drill down into and really invest fully in. And having one person that you invest in them and they invest in you, that really is where the payoff is. You know, like if you want to be the best at what you do, professionally, you probably don't want to be a jack of all trades. You know, like they say, jack of all trades, master of none. You know, you could be a decent podcaster and a decent writer and a decent speaker and a decent accountant and a decent plumber and all these things. But, you know, the people who are at the top of their field, you know, you don't have Michael Phelps, you know, like who was like the top swimmer of all time, was not also a really good basketball player because he went all in on swimming. So me,
Yeah.
I go all in on my wife, and
Mm.
that is absolutely the best part of my life is my marriage. And so I think it's very relevant in terms of people, you know, settling down, focusing and drilling down into that relationship and making it everything it can be, because it takes work. There's no question. You know, a relationship, a good, meaningful relationship takes work and it takes that investment.
Raf, do you think that is because you've been lucky in your life finding a partner for life? Because let's talk about data, right? uh, Tinder, one of the dating application, disclosed 500,000 records, IP, non-identifiable data set, which says that it, out of 100 ladies, 96 ladies will swipe for only 4 guys in 100. So let's say 100 profiles of ladies, 100 profiles of guys. The 96 ladies here, well, let's say 90% ladies here will only swipe right for the top 4 guys here, right?
Hmm.
Good looking, money, dependable, secure, uh, charismatic. Remaining guys get no right swipe at all. And that's the data speaking. It's
Yikes.
nothing related to psychology, love, or anything like that. In current world, when you make six figure, your employer expect you to spend 1,500 hours a week at workplace. They don't expect you to go home. They don't expect you to talk about your dog. They don't expect you to, tell them you have any problems in your life. They want you to be in office making money for them. That makes it hard. And I'm exaggerating here, because I know when a graduate from Oxford goes to work for PwC in Canary Wharf, London, they pay them, £200,000, but they have no life. They can't go out for drinks after work because they're going out to drink for 10 p.m. So we don't have time to meet people in the traditional way we used to in the previous world. So the only option left is these digital ways. Either you're, on social media platform or these so-called dating apps. That makes it super hard for a average person to find the love of his or her life. It's and the other side of the story is also same. There was a study shown by BBC that 40% of women in London, it's a big city across the world, it's one of the very well known city in the world. 40% of the women in London who are successful in their career, they make six figures and they live in the first 3 zones. So London is divided into 9 zones if you know. Center 1, 2, 3, 9. If you live in the first 3 zone, you're considered as very wealthy because you cannot afford to live in the 33 zone.
Right.
40% of them live with cats. 40% of them. And the data coming from BBC, right? Now, all this data we have available for us. And then there is a hope of ray of hope coming from Raffi Bilek, who is talking about love. This is what everybody wants. Everyone wants that. Why are you working? Why are you making £200,000 a year? Because you want somebody to share that experience with, right?
I would
What
think
is your
so.
opinion? Yeah. What is your opinion on the modern world workforce not having time? And what do you think would be a solution to go forward and find somebody for being your life partner?
That should be easy, right? You're just asking me to solve one of the world's major problems. I can knock that off in the next 5 minutes, probably. Um, Look, the modern world is not moving us in the right direction for good relationships. We keep degrading them. First with, social media sort of replacing friendships. So now I've friended you on Facebook or whatever, followed you, and that's supposed to replace an actual friendship. And now we have AI coming out, and we're going to have AI boyfriends and girlfriends, which people already have. So we keep replacing people. That's definitely not bringing us closer to good relationships. What the solution is to back out of all this and or change it or restructure, I don't have a good answer. Certainly not off the top of my head. I think people have to know it is going to take time and effort and work. Relationships are not going to come from more apps that have better algorithms and, quicker swiping. That's not the direction we need to go, because we've already inculcated ourselves that anything that takes more than 10 to 15 seconds isn't worth the wait. And I can assure you that any good relationship will take more than 10 or 15 seconds to develop. And then there will be problems that you will have to solve and work through. It's not something where you can just swipe right or swipe left and get rid of the problem of the issues. It takes time. It takes investment, emotional investment. And so, changing our mindset to realize that that's what we're going for and that's where the payoff is. I think that's the place to start, is just people realizing that the modern tools may not be the tools that we need to find, build, and maintain love.
That's true. And I couldn't agree more with you on this one because I think, character AI, right? This is a AI application where you go and you can talk to your brain child, well, any persona in the world. For example, if I want to talk Raffi Bilek, I will go and say, oh, this is the picture of Raffi, this is the name, this is his persona, and suddenly I have Raffi 24/7 available for me on the chat.
There's
Um,
no way it would be as funny as I am.
exactly. That's my
Can't be.
point, right? But the problem is, our teenagers who are not going out, playing out. I mean, I remember I come from a South Asian family. My mom used to scold me to come back to home because that is how much I loved playing basketball. I loved playing cricket. I loved playing football with my friend outside of my house. My brother's son, we have to take him out to play with other kids.
Yeah.
So the whole paradigm has shifted across the two generations, right?
It's a little bit
Um,
scary.
it is very scary. I mean, I'm very, very scared about like what's going to happen to our next generation. But then let's take a step back because you help uh, individuals, understanding their relationships and um, understanding how they can, stick together potentially in many cases. Not saying that's the best outcome, but do you think that staying together, and because we were talking about the kids, do you think it's staying together for kids is the right choice? And this question is weighs short-term stability for children against long-term emotional damage. I understand that, but let's say if a couple been with in a relationship for a while, they have kids and they don't like to be with each other, but they are with each other because they have kids. What is your opinion on that?
Another softball, huh? An easy question for that. I'll tell you this: there is a situation where the answer is fairly straightforward. If a
Mm,
couple is arguing, is in conflict, is in stress, then it is not better for the kids for them to stay together. What
got
impacts
it.
the kids far more is a level of conflict between their parents than the actual structure of the family.
Mm,
Certainly, it is ideal to have a two-parent family where everybody is happy and working on things together, and it's not perfect, but it's decent. That is good because even in the best case scenarios, divorce, there's financial cost, there's emotional cost. It's not optimal, but it is certainly better in some cases than people staying together and bringing their kids through the muck of them yelling and screaming and fighting. It might be better to separate and try to work on a decent and polite co-parenting relationship, and that the kids definitely come out better for that if the parents can avoid increasing conflict. And again, when they're divorced, if the conflict just goes on, that is also very hard on the kids. And so getting co-parenting help to manage that better is important. At the end of the day, it's the level of conflict between the parents that really makes the biggest difference.
mm. Do you, in what's okay? Let's go back to the data. What's the most number of people coming to you? What's the challenge they're facing primarily? And you can say that's the trending challenge in relationship in modern world nowadays.
Most people who come to me say they have problems with communication.
Mm,
That's what they say. That we have problems with communication. It could be in any number of different areas, but that's what looms large for them. That's what they see as their issue, which is, of course, why I wrote this book I wrote about the couples communication handbook, because so many people are having difficulties talking about from the basic issues to the more difficult issues that come up in a relationship. And so helping people to connect over that, I think, is my mission, and to be able to help bring more connection, more relationship to the world.
and and you think communication so how do you help your customers then? What's the best way? What's the process of analyzing, and what are the tips you have provided, if you could talk about in your book for um for the young modern couples, which they can utilize to improve their communication?
Sure, yeah, I'll give you all my juicy secrets, no worries. The first thing I tell people is take a break. Don't do it right now. When you're mad about something is the worst time to try to come talk about it. You find the milk jug is empty in the fridge, or the socks are on the floor, or any of the other typical arguments. when you're mad about it, you're going to run in, you're going to get all cranky, you're going to say some nasty things. That's not the time. It feels
Mm,
very compelling to try to deal with something right away, but it's almost never an emergency. Relationship issues are very rarely urgent like that, and it can wait a few hours, a few days. And you come back and you say, hey, can we talk about this? And you're calmer, your frontal lobes are operating properly, you're not running just fight or flight, and it'll go much better. So I tell people, take a break when you're upset. If you get into a discussion and it goes poorly, walk away from the discussion, come back later. It's fine. It doesn't feel great to walk away from it in the moment, but it works a lot better. And I do
mm,
this professionally. I do this personally. Sometimes my wife and I still get into fights and arguments, and we take a break. We come back later. It works better. I think that is the first thing for a lot of people, because there's plenty of people out there who are bright, who are articulate, who can actually communicate decently. They just don't do it well, like nobody does it well, when we're in a heated moment. So I think that's the critical first step to anybody getting their communication a little bit better.
interesting. Take a break. Wow. That's super cool, by the way. Thanks for that. Um, and then what are the other steps then? Let's say, okay, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say a couple, one works for PwC, Canary Wharf, comes back home every day 10 p.m. Another one, let's say in this case, girl works for Amazon, comes back home 5, but she sometimes have to go work early. So the only time they spend together during the week is between 11 p.m. to morning 4 a.m., right? And the weekends are full of drinks, fun games, bowling, Metro City stuff. One of them, let's say the girl, wants to have a family, to get married, to have kids. The other one doesn't feel like that because of all these Western societal pressure. This person thinks that getting into marriage is a trap. I would not just lose half of my wealth if something goes wrong, but also I would lose a friend whom I have invested so much, right? What would be the next step on or in your book to get into a better communicating relationship in this scenario?
That's a tough, you
Another
gave me a
easy
tough one,
question.
Ash. Another tough one, Ash. So what we're talking about here is perhaps less of a communication issue and more of a fundamental mismatch in what they're looking for. If she wants to settle down, have a family, have kids, and he wants to keep working till 10 p.m., making money, going out for drinks and bowling, they may not have a long term future together. If they,
Hmm.
and I've seen this for sure, if they very much love each other, they want to stay together, okay, we have to talk through what that looks like. But I've also seen couples where they do love each other, they like being together, but they just have different visions of life. They don't want to live the same kind of life. And that's something that we have to talk through. And certainly we can have that conversation. I don't think that the arguments this couple are having is about oh, I want this life, I want that life. They're having arguments about you come home too late, we never go out, you keep bothering me, you keep nagging me to do the dishes, so on and so forth. And they're having arguments that stem from this fundamental divide that they're not really moving in the same direction. And so maybe dodging the question of who's supposed to do the dishes tonight and talking about the deeper issues here and getting underneath what the surface level stuff is and helping them talk about that. Like, you know what, here's what I want for my life. And I'm not sure that we're going in that direction. And the other person is saying, I feel like I am living my life the way I want to. And I feel I'm being pulled away from that. So to talk about that might help them focus on the values that are in conflict here and get a sense of whether they're prepared to change what they're doing or not. I mean, somebody who really wants kids and somebody who really doesn't want kids may not have a good future together. And that
Mm,
can be tough, especially when they love each other and care about each other. But if you don't want the same kind of life, then you probably don't want to spend the rest of your life together. That's going to, it's going to be ongoing conflict.
mm. What is the best way to figure out if you or your partner is aligned with your goals for future? Because this is a very trending relationship challenge in modern world right now. People come from different culture, people come from different backgrounds, people come from different empathy, sympathy, and raise. They're brought up in a different environment. They have different principles in life, right? They want to do different things, but then they meet people, and then they start getting into some serious talks. But it takes a lot of time, as you mentioned, to grow into a relationship. What are the best steps to take initially in your relationship to make sure that you're aligned with not just with your partner, but the partner is also aligned with you going forward in this journey together?
Well, I think it starts with knowing what your values are and where you want to go. If you get into a relationship, and not saying there's something wrong with this, people get into relationships young and then discover themselves throughout. But if you are single and looking to date and looking to build something long term, you probably want to know what it is you want beforehand. To get into a relationship, if you are wanting to have a family, even in the long run, you may want to start off with that foot forward rather than dating somebody who works at PwC until 10 p.m. at night. Let's be real, that may not work out well. Knowing what you want and aiming for that is a good start. And then,
Mm,
having conversations about that maybe relatively early on. If you're at that stage of your life where you are looking to get into a longer term relationship, possibly a marriage, possibly settle down, you want to have those conversations about your values. People who get together in high school or college, and then they stay together for many years, like, yeah, that's a little bit different because they were becoming who they are. And they might find when they hit their 20s that they aren't aligned anymore. So recognizing that is important. But certainly, if you are older and getting into a relationship now, and by older, I mean, 20 or older, let's say, and you're looking to get into a relationship, knowing what it is you want for the long term, and then being able to articulate that is probably a good place to start.
mm, mm. And so it comes back to the same question, isn't it? Do you think marriage is relevant in this society now? Because being all this, you can have kids together, not marrying with each other, right? You can live together now. You can have your next to kin's name in your insurance policy without marrying to this person. What is that you gain to get married?
I think by getting married, people say, I am going to invest in you. That is what I said earlier, right? Is that people need to have a primary relationship where they invest in, where they build something really meaningful, and where they put the time and effort into it. And sure, you can do that without getting married, and many people do. But when we do get married, it is a statement of commitment to that fact. And I would rather try to invest in something with somebody who says, yes, I'm going to do this with you, rather than somebody who says, well, maybe.
Do you have like a template of questions for our listeners? Like, say, if you are in your, you're between 20 to 35 and you're in a new relationship, these are the set of questions you should ask your partner to make sure that you align. It's sort of like a spreadsheet for both of them.
That is an interesting idea. I ought to create that. I think that exists in my head somewhere, but I could definitely
Yeah.
make that and share that with people. I mean, I think again, it starts with knowing what you want and then going from there. So, do you want a family? Do you plan to travel? Do you want to work hard and then settle down? Do you want to retire early? What are the things that what and so what does your life look like, and what are the values that are important to you? For some people, politics is really important. I want to be involved in, supporting or protesting or whatever it is. For some people, it's, making sure there's rights for this or that population. For other people, it's, whatever is important to you, and knowing what's important to you and being able to put that out there. I want to support this cause. I just want to raise a family and not be involved in that. My parents are very important to me. Again, people from different cultures. I'm in the U.S. and it's very different the way that the elderly are treated here than they are, for example, in Eastern countries where there's kind of an expectation that your parents come and live with you when they get older. And here,
Mm,
that's virtually unheard of. And so, being clear about whether that's important to you, for an American to marry, let's say, somebody from Japan, and not have talked about that question, it's risky. You want to just talk
mm.
about that. Not that you have to make any commitments up front, but say, hey, this is important to me. I see my parents coming to live with us when they get older. That's just a value that I have for my culture. And so knowing what those important values are, so you can ask those questions, check in on them, and make sure that you guys have the same idea of what life is going to look like.
Yeah, yeah, and and it's really cool that you shared this because I personally had a recent experience like that. So my girlfriend she's German, and one of her friend she recently delivered a baby girl, and after like 6 months or something, we wanted to see her, and she invited us all into a pub. So we were the only couple who didn't had kids, all the other couples who joined us, and I'm saying all the other, there was like only four other couples, husband, wife, and their children with them, mostly toddlers, small, young children. I was the only brown person there, which I was very proud of because, when there is a scarcity of something, you are in high demand, right? But when I was there, we were sipping on our drinks. I realized something. All the mothers were talking about a topic around mother in laws. And the consensus was, oh, my mother is coming to help me out with the baby for around a month. I am very tensed because on this earth, I cannot even imagine living with my mother who kept me in her womb for 9 months, raised me to become a human, more than 10 days in a house. So what I did is I booked an Airbnb for her, which is very close to her house, not very, very close that she can see it, but it's a walking distance. So she will live there and help me out for a couple of hours and go back. And I was looking at her like this because I never experienced this in my life. I
Yeah.
come from an Asian family where moms and dad comes because you invite them when you have a kid and they help you out with all the chores, all the challenges you have being new parent in the house, and you do it together. It's the cultural thing. And then we came back from that conversation, and when we were traveling in the train, and I said to my partner, listen, what I heard today was difficult for me to digest. And it was difficult for me to digest because one of the women was talking about her own mother and the other one was talking about the dad's mother. And they were both talking about the same practical challenge, which is living together with your parents. In my culture, it is other way around. How do you feel about it? And that
That's a great
discussion,
conversation you opened up. That's a great
yeah.
conversation to have.
And that didn't go well.
Oh,
What's your
interesting.
thoughts on it?
I mean, what do you mean it didn't go well? You guys had different opinions on it, or you got into an argument? Like, what do you mean didn't go well?
So I started explaining that in my culture, when you have a kid, it's a big leap in life. There's a new life coming to your family. Not necessarily, even if you're a PhD, MIT graduate, Oxford postgraduate, and PhD, you might not have that smartness to help a new life in your world, right?
Nobody does. Everyone's
Mhm.
surprised when it
Eh,
comes.
when they come. So in my culture, it is expected to have somebody who is either your elder who has gone through the journey come and help you out for the first 6 months or a year, depending upon how you can manage that. How do you feel about it? And she's like, oh, I cannot even stay in the same house with my own mother for more than a week. How can you even expect me to stay with your parents in the same house for 6 months?
Um, okay. So that is a challenging conversation. I would say like this. One of the important fundamentals that I teach people when having a difficult conversation is that we're going to have two separate conversations. The first one is where we're going to explore the issue, and the second one
Mm,
is where maybe we'll resolve the issue. Meaning, when we first talk about it, we are not going to talk about what we're going to do. And that takes off a lot of the pressure that you might feel. If you're talking about how, well, my mother's for sure going to come if we have a baby, so she's going to feel pressured and say, well, no, I can't even imagine that. I don't, and now there's a fight about the actual results. Whereas if we
mm,
just start exploring what's going on and you say, you know what, this is important to me and I want this. And we understand from the outset that we're not making any decisions. So then she can say, you know what, that's fascinating. For me, it sounds like the scariest thing in the world. And I can't imagine doing that. And you can say like, wow, tell me about why that's scary. So now we're exploring what life is like for the other person and what their internal world is like. And there's no pressure to actually do something different. And that allows us to hear each other, to empathize with each other, to get where the other person's coming from. And there's no implication like, okay, we're doing something about it now, which can be really scary and can push the conversation into places you don't want it to go.
mm. Okay, so you're saying that instead of understanding what's going to happen or what actions we have to take a step back.
Yeah. Look, you cannot solve a problem that you don't understand. And yet we
Mm,
try to do that all the time. First, you need to really deeply understand the problem if you want to figure out what you're going to do. Now, in your case, there wasn't actually an immediate problem that needed solving, but you were in
mm,
some sense talking about some outcome that might or might not happen. And I'm saying if we would take that off the table, you would say to her, look, we're not making any decisions right now. And she goes, okay, we're not making any decisions. So now we can
Mm,
talk about what the issues are with nobody feeling pressure that like, oh, that means we have to do something that I don't want to do.
interesting. So uncoupling the underneath hidden um, reasoning behind that particular expectation
Yeah.
from one or another in the relationship, one side of the partnership, and understanding the perspective of the other side, and then once you understand it, potentially there might be a couple of more steps in between to go to the final stage.
There's a lot of understanding. I mean, the fact that you think your mother should stay with you when you have a baby, that has a lot of levels to it. That
Mm,
has, I need help with it. I'm going to be very busy. That has, this is a cultural expectation, and I want to, I feel an allegiance to my culture. This is a deep value I have is respecting my mother. There's all kinds of levels about that, and exploring that and running through that to the point where you both really deeply understand each other's motivations and values and opinions. That's not a quick, 5-minute conversation. Let's decide what to do. That's probably a
mm,
series of conversations over time. And once I really understand you and you really understand me, and I know
mm,
that you get me and you know that I get you, then we're in a place where we can solve a problem in a way that comes out with a solution that works for both of us.
mm. And then when you start thinking seriously uh, about going forward with the relationship, potentially growing a family together, then it comes to these hard rationale around finances. For example, there was a recent study done by one of the media houses in UK. It said that once your household income, which is husband wife in our scenario, crosses six figure, you lose all the government benefit. You don't get 30 hours of child benefit from the taxman. You don't get any kind of other benefit. You're paying 45% taxes plus more VATs on everything, whatever you're buying or investing into. That study was done with around four to 5,000 mothers, single mothers, and then remaining couple parents, guardians, right? And what that study found out is for each new life, each child or baby you get into your family and you cross the six-figure income in London, it costs you £2,800 a month extra to raise that kid. That includes food, insurance, paperwork, travel, every single thing, right? That is quite a lot of money for even for both the parents who are working, because six figures is not that much money anymore. We buy a coffee in Starbucks for £7, which is a lot of money for a coffee, right?
Yeah.
Um, that kind of restricts the new modern couples to think that they can go forward with having a kid. I mean, talking about South Korea, so their the rate of fertilization has decreased below one. So they cannot even replace the population they have in their country, right? Scandinavian countries, very low. Mostly European countries, even parts of US, I'm sure you know
Most
much
developed
more,
countries, right, their birth rate is falling.
falling down, right? And I have heard into different social media platforms that mothers are not willing to take this step forward to have kids in modern world, and fathers or males in the relationships are not quite inclined towards getting into a marriage, which is a legal relationship in our society, right? Which I think fair enough for mothers to not to go forward with the kids, because if they don't have a legal relationship which protects them to have a kid, then they don't feel protected. And that's why we have a lot of single mothers in our society nowadays, right?
So you were asking what the relevance of marriage is. Again, I'm saying this kind of commitment, I
Mm,
mean, this is how it was evolutionarily, right? Which is that women invested in producing children because they had some man to go out and kill the mammoth and brings home some food. It's
mm,
it's similar here. When you make a commitment and I say, okay, we're going to build something together, not just like, okay, I like you, we'll spend some time together, but we're committing to make this work. Then there's a lot more security and a lot more reason to invest in that, both in terms of your relationship and in terms of the family that you build.
mm. Very interesting. Um, Rafi, this conversation going way beyond the interesting conversations I had into my different episodes. But again, we have a very limited amount of time. And, we have another section on our show where we go through the quickfire round where I have 6 quickfire questions for you. But
I hope they're
before
easier than
we
the other ones.
definitely, come on, I'm asking you easy questions. Well, in that spirit, then, I want to ask you a personal question before we go into the lightning round. Um, this question has came to me from one of the listeners of the show, and this person, she has texted me this question on one of the social media platform, and she asked me like, should I break up because the sex drive between me and my partner don't match anymore? She has actually thought about cheating on her partner, but her ethics hasn't allowed her to do
I don't
that.
see how this is going to become a personal question.
No, I'm just saying that because you help a lot of couples, and I'm sure they must be coming to you for this kind of consultation, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's very difficult to advise somebody on this particular topic. And that's why it becomes more like you have to give a thought and understand, okay, what should I advise, right? I had no answer for her because I'm not an expert. I'm just a podcaster. And that's why I'm asking you. Physical incompatibility often causes long-term frustration if you leave it unaddressed. What would you advise this particular individual if she comes to you?
So this certainly does not have to be a relationship killer. There
Mm,
are things we can work on here. First of all, let's make sure they're talking about it. Do they have talks about their intimate life? A lot of people don't because it's difficult and uncomfortable.
mm,
But if she's not getting what she wants out of that and they have a difference in their sex drives, let's start by talking about that. Um, Maybe there's something that is getting in the way. Maybe he's got a lot of stress. Maybe there's all kinds of things. And then there are things that we can do to, bridge that gap. It is, a difference in sex drives is very normal. There are many couples that have faced that. And there are things you can do. We can work on it. We can see what is needed to make things better. So I have no idea, what this person's situation is. Maybe she has talked about it at length, and they have kids together, and she loves him, doesn't want to leave. But but to think about going outside the relationship before you talk about how we can make this relationship better in the bedroom, I think it's
mm,
premature. There are
mm,
lots of things we can do and we can talk about that might improve that situation. And the truth is that's going to change over time anyways.
mm.
When you're younger, it seems like a very big in your face thing, but in 10 years, both of you are going to have a different sensibility, different, bodies. And so let's work on it before we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So your advice is let's talk about it before making any drastical decision for the
Yeah,
relationship, depending
look,
upon your
again, I don't know what,
situation.
what they've done so far, but they can certainly talk about it. They can certainly go
Mm,
to a couples counselor who, we deal with this kind of thing all the time and see what can we improve. I mean, if at the end of the day, she needs more than she's getting and he does not want to give, then maybe they don't want to stay together. But
mm,
usually it's not that drastic no, I'm not going to do it more. I must have like, there's
mm,
places to bend, there's places to do things differently and to make that relationship work. I mean, every couple has differences that they have to
mm.
work on bridging that gap. For some people, it's in their physical relationship. For other people, it's in a different place. But everyone's got to work on that's the work. I said it takes investment to make a relationship work. This is part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rafi, for this one because I'm sure when this episode goes live, this person is, get some insight from what you have
Sure.
advised, and yeah, definitely, definitely, you have to connect with Rafi, right? Let's get into our lightning round, man. It's a
Sure.
six quick fire questions. At any instance, if you feel that you don't want to answer the question, just give me a skip, and then we
Sure.
move to
Where's
the
my
next
buzzer?
one.
I need a buzzer to
You
buzz
need
it.
a buzzer. Great, sir. I like your witty attitude. Not many of my guests has been that comforting. So thanks for that. Great. What are the top 3 relationship rules to make your relationship successful?
Top 3 relationship rules. Okay. I'm going to stick mine up there, which is take a break. Don't run into everything you need to fix right away. It's not going to help you. Number 2, I would say, I'll tell you like this. I say that the 3 most important words in a relationship are help me understand. So recognizing that your partner has a point of view, they are not crazy, they are not evil. So try to understand that they have a perspective, and seeking to understand that will get you much farther than trying to convince them of your perspective right away. Help me understand. That's the place to start.
Help
Um,
me understand.
Right. So one, take a break. Two, help me understand. And three, look at the good stuff. That's a really critical part of a relationship. No relationship is perfect, but no relationship is completely terrible.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you're in a bad relationship and you should leave, then leave. I don't mean like, hang on forever. But every relationship has its struggles. The more that you pay attention to the good stuff, the more the bad stuff impacts you less. So not to ignore the challenges and the difficulties, but if you want things to go well, focus on what's going well and build on that rather than focusing on all the problems you have. And that gives you a better context for, okay, yeah, this is wrong and this is wrong, but look at all these things they do. Yeah, if you're in a relationship, they're kind to you at times. They take you out to dinner, they take out the trash, they do the dishes, they feed the kids, whatever. There's so many things that we do for each other in any long-term relationship that if you pay attention to those, it gives a context for the things that aren't going right.
That is so cool. That I'm gonna cut that up into a small, the clips for my social media and put that up because I think that's very helpful for modern couples to understand these three.
Yeah, someone should write a book about this or something.
Yeah. Oh, that was around my next question. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Well, I just happen to have the right book for you. It's called The Couples Communication Handbook: The Skills You Never Learned for the Marriage You Always Wanted. Uh,
Mm,
um, Side note, I happen to have been the one that wrote that, but it's still a really good book. I
mm.
wrote it because people need these ideas, people need these skills. I think it's very helpful. So for people who are looking to connect better with their partner or their spouse, to improve the communication, to improve the relationship in general, I think it's a winner, if I do so say myself.
Indeed, indeed, definitely. Would you be able to share the link for the book? I can put that into the description
Yeah,
later.
it's at thecommunicationbook.com, and
Hmm.
people can get the first two chapters for free there, both an
Hmm.
ebook and audiobook. And then if you like it, there's a link to the Amazon page where you
Awesome.
can buy it in any format you want and then leave a review to tell people how fantastic it is. Because I'm trying to get it out there to the world, man. Trying to make the world a better place in my own little way.
Indeed, indeed, definitely. Next question. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful partner?
For me to be a successful partner, boy, there's so many good ones. Let's try flexibility.
Mm,
Right? If I have to have things my way all the time, it's going to be hard for you to live with me. There are some things that I really want a certain way, but the fewer of those that I have, the better off we'll be. So maybe we do things your way sometimes. Maybe it doesn't always have to be this way. I like my sandwiches cut in half like a rectangle. Unless it's grilled cheese, it should be a triangle. Okay, but you know what? If I don't hold on to that so tightly, if my wife cuts me the grilled cheese as a rectangle, I'll still eat it.
yeah.
Okay. And if I don't, if I'm that inflexible that I can't make room for that, it's going to be a tough relationship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or you have to throw the bin out on Friday because the council is coming to pick it up on Monday. You can take it out on Saturday also,
Okay. Right. There are ways of being flexible. And there's also a little bit of help me understand there. Like, why is it so
right?
important for you that I take it out on Friday? Right.
Yeah.
But before we talk about what we're going to change, like, let me understand why that's important for you. Some people are, maybe you're worried about what's not going to happen. Maybe it bothers you having the disorder in the house. I don't know. Help me understand.
Mm.
Let's look at that together.
Awesome. Awesome. What's your favorite personal relationship hack?
Personal relationship hack. I really just want to go back to the timeout. To me, that has made so much of a difference in my life and in the life of my clients, which is
Mm,
that, you think that now's the time to talk about it, and it just isn't. And you think like, oh, I don't want to stuff it under the rug. No, no, don't stuff it under the rug. Let's just wait till later. Right.
mm,
But it's really important. Yes, I know it's really important, but we're never going to talk about it. Okay, but you could, right? I promise if we wait a little while, we can come back to it and it'll go better. And I think that, again, that's just the first thing I tell everybody. Nothing else we talk about is going to work if you try to run right into it every time you're angry, because you can't think straight. Nobody can. That's how our brains are designed.
yeah. Yeah. Next one is what's one secret weapon to keep your physical intimacy intact?
Another softball, Ash. What's a secret weapon to keep your physical intimacy intact? Okay. Um, One secret weapon is watch careful what you're looking at, right? So I'm not casting any judgment on what people do with their lives, on pornography, on social media, whatever. But if you look at pornography, your spouse will look less attractive because the people on the screen are highly curated, makeup, airbrush, whatever, and human beings are less like that. So the more sexual content you are putting into your eyeballs, the less your spouse is going to be exciting. And so I think
Mm,
that keeping a good, exciting physical relationship means saving your eyes, your mind, your heart for the one person you're going to be with, as opposed to sort of spreading out that sexual energy on the internet.
mm, definitely, definitely. Last but not least, and this is my favorite. What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I was a swing dance teacher in college.
Oh, that's nice.
I love swing dancing. Yeah,
Did you teach a lot of kids? Like, how many kids you teach?
probably a couple hundred over the years I was doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good times. I was like the swing dance guy in college,
Mm.
and it was cool. It was cool to raise a generation of dancers who probably taught the next people. I'm 20 years out of college, but maybe somebody who's there now learned from the person that learned from the person that learned from the person that learned from me. Who knows?
Yeah, and have you ever had a, I don't know, an instance where a student of yours came to you and said thanks because Raffi taught me the dance or something like that? Any emotional moment?
Um, I remember one time I was dancing out in Lincoln Square, New York, and some
Mm.
photographer got a photo of me, put it in the New York Times in the
Wow.
lifestyle section. And I came to my job the next day. I was working at school, and some other teacher just came up to me like, I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" I didn't know. So they showed me the picture. I was like, I ran into it like last year. I was looking through some old stuff. I found it from 20 years ago. I was like, "Well, that's me. Look how
That's
thin I
me.
was."
Yay. Well, Raffi, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom, unpacking all these secrets of relationships. If people want to get in touch with you or people want to talk to you, have some questions, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, find me at thecommunicationbook.com. Happy to field some questions. You can email me there. You can check out the book and the blog post, which had additional materials. And yeah, happy to help people. It's really what I'm aiming for, trying to get the word out about how we can make our relationships better. And like I said at the beginning, happiness is love. Full stop. People with better relationships live happier, more fulfilled lives. That's what I'm trying to get out there.
Indeed, indeed. Raffi, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Relationship Lab podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.